Victoria 3 has really seen a lot of changes since its release, but overall there's still some issues with the game that have yet to be addressed. I'm talking about late game performance, which granted with the 1.7 patch has really improved. The game is probably 10 times better in the late game with the current patch than it was in previous iterations of Victoria 3. Game performance aside, there's other issues like replayability. There's very much so lack of flavor. It kind of feels like about the same thing with small variations when you're playing different nations because there's not so much content right now. Stuff that we all know 1.8 patch and future patches will be addressing, but until that happens, I actually decided to make my very own mod for Victoria 3 in which I fixed a lot of issues and I've made the game significantly more replayable by creating a better military system with the integration of other mods, of course, more production methods. I've redistributed the resources around the map, and more importantly, I pretty much removed late game lag completely. You can play up to 1936 with literally the same speed as you do 1836. Why is that? Well, I did something that I know Paradox is never gonna do because it's very controversial. Stick around and I think you're gonna see why it's so controversial. Hey, it fixed late game lag. I don't give a schnaps, okay? I'm sorry, but it fixed the lag. That's what you gotta do to fix the lag sometimes. Before we start this off though, if you enjoy my content, you want to see more videos like these, do hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It will really encourage me to make more videos like these in the future. One of the very first thing you're going to realize when you play with my mod is that some of the colors have been changed. I've given the Ottoman Empire the red color, which is the color that was actually used by the Ottomans. The Janissaries had a red uniform. The flag was red. Overall, the Empire used a lot more red than it ever used green, so I think like this color fits it a lot better. Same here, the Prussians have received the Prussian blue, and once you form the North German Federation in Germany, it's a different color again. Wallachia also has a much more accurate color, and I've also changed a few other colors around the world, especially for the formables. But that being said, let's actually hop into this because there's a lot of things that have changed that make the game significantly more balanced if you want to play this as a multiplayer, because first off, this mod was initially made for my multiplayer sessions that I organize with the community or that I organize with other content creators. If you want to be a part of those community games, by the way, I'm going to start a brand new community game in the middle of November. If you want to sign up for that, get on my Discord and wait for the announcement, and then you can select some countries and you'll be assigned a country. I'm going to do a game where we have basically a player on every single country, so there's space for quite a few people. Now, me tagging into Prussia is classic Ludi, but that being said, you probably noticed we have a slightly different army configuration here. We have way more units than base vanilla because I do think the Prussians should have more units, but more importantly because I check history books, and in 1836 the Prussian army actually had 155,000 units, regular units aside from the conscripts, so I gave them exactly that. There's 55, 55, 20, and 20. So altogether, it's 150,000 units. I probably should give them 5,000 more, but 150 is fine. I like round numbers as well. The army configurations are 30, 25, 30, 25, 10, 5, 5, and 10, 5, 5. I've also given them significantly more ships. They start with 10 ships, and it's not just the Prussians. I've rebalanced all the nations. The Russians also have a rebalanced setup for their armies. The British also have quite a few new units, actually, and again, I've rebalanced their units so that the armies make a little bit more sense and they're better structured. I've changed for most of the nations the starting consumption taxes, so you don't need to cancel the poo-poo consumption tax and you have to give services, transport, and luxury furniture tax, which is what most of the great powers have to do, with some exceptions. You probably noticed in the top right, the actual information screen is different. This is an integrated mod. Now, all the mods that I have integrated in my mod, you will find in the description of my mod, so you can check them individually out for yourself, and do make sure you subscribe to those individually as well, whether you like to play with my mod or you want to just play with one of those specific mods individually. It's good to support all the creators because end of the day, even though my mod is the work of me scripting for a couple of weeks, I wouldn't be able to have this mod without also having integrated the other 5 or 6 mods that I have so far. I've also integrated the Guns Grubs mod, which allows you to get weapons, distribution of rations, uniforms, supplies, and so on, support equipment. So as you can see, you start with all armies having primitive weapons, which is actually a little bit of a debuff. Then you give them firearms, which negates that debuff. Then you can give them percussion cap, which gives a flat bonus. And then again, once you research better technology, you give them rifling, which represents the rifles, moving away from the needle guns and so on. Then breech locks, and then ending up with the bolt action rifles. All of these give a flat bonus. So aside from the units themselves, these bonuses that you give out from the guns, from the rations as well, once you get canned goods and refrigeration, from the uniforms also you get some offense as well as some defense and recovery rate whenever you get your helmets and drab. The idea behind this is that each individual army you can supply with whatever weapons you want, give them whatever rations, uniforms, based on how much money you have and how much you can sustain, of course. This not only does it make the units more flexible, it gives a little bit of an incentive for you to actually rush certain technologies to get that bonus. It also makes the game significantly more fun. Like when you give support equipment, it actually gives flat offense defense for machine guns, 20 offense for chemical weapons, and 15 offense for flamethrowers, as well as devastation. So keep that in mind if you're going to use flamethrowers in the provinces. This obviously also increases the demand for these particular trade goods, so it encourages your economy to build more of these goods in the mid to late campaign, well, throughout the whole campaign really. I have rebalanced the starting buildings for most nations on the planet. I'm going to show you the rest after we show what's new with Prussia, for example, here. So the Prussians didn't get too much. I gave them one shipyard, one military shipyard, so you don't need to worry about getting your clippers and your military ships since you start with 10 military ships now, as well as I gave them one motor industry from the start because you will have railways from day one. And most importantly, I gave them 10 universities. Almost all the great powers start with a way bigger amount of universities. The reason for that is because, well, obviously you do have universities all over Europe, especially. You got a lot in Germany, a lot in France, a lot in Italy. It makes no sense for Italy to start with basically no universities, where historically this place was full of universities. That's why the Italians do start with significantly more universities and bonuses. Let me tag into Sardinia Piedmont here so you guys see what I'm talking about. From day one, we've got 7 universities just in Sardinia Piedmont, but they also start with a proper functioning economy. You get 4 million GDP from day one compared to the 2 million that you start in vanilla. That's because in vanilla, and especially if you're going to play multiplayer with this mod, it's significantly more balanced, where as Sardinia Piedmont, you can unify Italy and not get wiped out by the French or by the Austrians without any sort of a fighting chance. You got more troops. You start with 42 units or 42 battalions. You start with quite a few new buildings, including your own military shipyard, arms industry, artillery foundry. You got a few iron mines extra, some wine yards extra, so you definitely can hold your own and you have a way better economy. We actually start with 31,000 on medium taxation. I think vanilla it's like 15 or 16,000, so it's almost double. Speaking of, I've also increased the amount of arable land. So for example, the Prussians start with 1.18 arable land, the Ottoman with 1.49, the Spanish with 1.07. So in essence, increasing the arable land improves your economy early on in the campaign, and it just overall improves your country so much more. Since we have showed over here, let me show you what's new with the Spaniards, because I've actually improved them a lot as well. It's a proper playable nation, not just for multiplayer, but for single player if you want to. It's really fun as them. You do have slavery banned from day one, because if the British have it banned, then the Spanish have it banned too, okay? Both of them banned slavery at the same time historically. Sure, the Spanish still had slave owners and slaves in Puerto Rico, but so did the British Empire, in way more than just one colony. It took way longer than just a few years after they officially banned slavery to enforce that ban. In any case, I probably should have shown that Sardinia Piedmont also starts with public schools, which it does not in vanilla, and as consequence it has like 40% literacy from day one, making Sardinia Piedmont one of the more literate countries. Let me go to the literacy map mode. There you go. It has 43.6 roughly literacy, so it's on par with the Prussians. The most literate nations, of course, are still the British and the Swedes. I've buffed also the Spanish units a little bit, and I've gave them some new units. You can see here we have quite a few new universities universities as well. We start with 64 innovation from the 7 starting universities. I gave them quite a bit of industry too, extra mines, some extra urban buildings as well I've added for the Spaniards. We also start with 9.6 million GDP compared to like 8 million something in vanilla, if I'm not mistaken. The sick man of Europe also saw some improvements. We've made some changes when it comes to the population distribution, and not only for the sick man, we've made these changes all around Europe. So if you go to the cultural map mode, you're going to see significantly more Turks in Anatolia, more Greeks in Greece, more Germans in North Germany, South Germany, and overall just a lot less minorities. Now, why did I do this? Oh, racist, Ludi. No, it's not because of that. It's because removing a lot of the minorities improved the game speed so much. This is the reason why late game performance is so good. Well, one of the reasons. There's actually reasons why. Removing the minorities early in the campaign means that these minorities don't get the chance of branching off into multiple different pops, which increase the load on the game itself and on your computer as consequence. Because, for example, if you have one pops that is, say, 1,000 Bantu people that are animists, some of them will convert to Catholic, some of them will convert to Protestant, some of them will convert to Sunni. So from 1,000 pops, you get like another 7 different types of pops that will start growing individually. So you end up with like 20 different pops eventually in 30 years because of the small differences between one another, and they're like 1,000 of each or 2,000, and it makes no sense because all that does is just increase the load on your computer, and it just destroys any sort of late game performance. So first off, I've made it a lot more homogenous all around the world, the culture. So you can see here, there's pretty much only North Germans within North Germany, only South Germans within South Germany, only Francian in France, and so on. And then the second thing I did is I've essentially removed all types of homelands. So what that means is the only homeland in Anatolia is for the Turkish people. There's no more Greek homeland. You don't have Greek homeland, and as consequence, Greek populations will get converted to Turkish. And all of my test runs, for example, the French are 100% French in just 30 years. So by 1860, you don't have Occitan, you don't have Franco-Provençal, you don't have Breton, you only have French. Why is that? Because look, there's no homelands for these pops. You only have French. That's it. Oh, actually, this one's French and North Italian. Okay, fair enough. There are some exceptions to that. So not having homeland bypasses the whole not being allowed to be assimilated. Because if you have a province that is, say, South German, the pops in that province that are South German will never get assimilated to another culture because of that homeland. But that's removed. In Europe, that might be controversial, right? But in Africa, for example, and this is one of my favorite new nations with the mod, Sokoto, I've removed over 50 or 60 different culture homelands. So example, in the state of Nigeria, we only have Fulbe and Hausa homeland. That's it. In vanilla, there's like 6 different homelands in this province alone. Same here. All of these are Hausa and Fulbe. That's it. No other. This one's only Fulbe. That's because the primary cultures in Sokoto are Hausa and Fulbe. Vanilla Victoria 3, you probably have like 20 starting cultures in Sokoto. My mod, you only have 3. And the third one, the Yoruba, are an accepted one, but they will get converted to either Hausa or Fulbe super fast because they don't have any more homelands. And I've done this in all the areas here. Wadai only has 2 homelands. Again, 2 homelands, 1 homeland over here. All over Africa, I've done this. And African parts alone is such a massive deal because vanilla, you've got like some states with 6, 7 homelands. It's ridiculous, man. I get it. It's fun from a historical perspective. It makes a lot of sense. I don't think it's worth it when it takes such a massive toll on the performance. So removing the homelands, making the world a lot more homogenous, has fixed all performance issues. Keep that in mind. You will not get minorities if you play with this mod in the late game. Not even the late game. The 1860s, you're not going to get minorities. Look at Argentina, for example. We only have one culture everywhere. Platinian. That's it. And these are all only one homeland. You got Platinian homeland, even in the south here. Platinian. So Patagonia, only Platinian. Everybody that in Patagonia is Patagonian will get converted to Platinian after it has been colonized by Argentina. And speaking of Argentina, also has seen some buffs. They start with 1.2 million GDP. And before we tag into Argentina, Sokoto itself has seen massive buff. We start with 3 million GDP. We have textile mills, paper mills. We got a lot of basic industry going from day one. A few extra government administration buildings. More importantly, though, they start with a higher technology tier. So compared to vanilla, we have colonization unlocked from day one. We got academy economy unlocked from day one. We've got some production extra technologies. Compared to vanilla, there's like 6-7 more technologies that Sokoto starts with, which allows it to be on par with other powers, and it gives it a fighting chance before the colonials arrive. And I've also given it claims. So look at that. We got a claim on Bagirmi. So attacking Bagirmi is only 3 infamy, which I think vanilla is like 13 infamy or something, because it does not have a claim. And not only that, got claims everywhere. Got a claim on Borno, got a claim on Outer Hausa as well. I think we got claims on all of the central ports of Africa, didn't we? Yeah, we got claims all the way to Darfur. Basically all of this is claimed by Sokoto. So you can easily, if you playing in multiplayer, capture all of Central Africa and get ready for a big war to defend against the Europeans. If you're playing single player, not multiplayer, it's gonna be a lot more fun, a lot more enjoyable. I'm also planning to add some formables here like Wakanda and stuff like that to make it more interesting as well. Tagging into Argentina, we do start with basically one of each urban building, or most of the urban buildings, to give it a little bit of a boost. We got extra gold mines, iron mines, coal mines from day one. So you do have a proper industry from this beginning of the campaign. 2 universities as well. I've actually made in South America, Argentina and Colombia. I've boosted both of them so that they are competing rivals essentially. AI, New Granada and Argentina are not to be messed with. 1.7 million GDP and 1.2 million GDP. So obviously Granada is a little bit stronger than Argentina, and roughly 2 million for both of them population. Now culture wise, I've done the same. Only North Andean in Argentina. I've removed most of the minorities. I've done the same with the South Andeans in Peru and Bolivia, and as well in Chile. It is 100% South Andean in Chile now. Brazil, I have not really done much about that, so it's still a mixture of different cultures because I haven't finished doing everything I want to do with the mod, but eventually it is going to be less cultures in Brazil as well. It's going to be a lot easier to do your journals as Brazil. Mexico also, I've done the same. I've made it only Mexican culture, removed all the minorities, which not only does it improve the game, but it also makes Mexico significantly stronger and more of a challenge for the US to take on. It's not just steamrolling over Mexico now. It's actually going to be a fair fight, or not really fair fight, close to a fair fight, I guess you could say. They got 5 million GDP from day one, so they got significantly more buildings now, but not any extra battalions, so keep that in mind. However, since you've got 9 million Mexicans from day one, 9.1 million Mexicans from day one, what you can do, because they're all accepted pops, you can get a few more conscripts. It's not too many. Keep that in mind. It's not, look at that. It's like 28 conscripts from day one. It's not much, but it's better than vanilla, okay? It's a lot better than vanilla. Still, the US can have like 300 conscripts, so you do have to pass legislation to make sure that you have more conscripts, namely National Guard. Now, National Guard does give you 45 battalions because you've got significantly more Mexican pops now, though. So that's pretty good. But Mexico does start with some extra buildings that allow it to industrialize a lot faster now to keep up with the US, even though it might lose some of the northern provinces. As with previous countries, every single province here is only Mexican homeland. There is no minority homelands here. And I want to reiterate, I'm only doing this for game balance purpose, okay? I'm not, there's no other reason, because I know some of you are going to be in the comments, Ludi, whoa, you remove all the Ashkenazi from Germany. Why? It's just for balance purpose. Oh my god, guys, come on. I'm already seeing the comments. If it makes you happy, I left some, like, where there was a huge amount of them. Like, I left some in Bohemia. There's some, okay? But there's no homeland, so eventually they will get converted. Just keep that in mind, though. Now, obviously, it's not just the big and the medium-sized nations. I've done improvements with the smaller nations, too. So, for example, Persia is actually playable now. You start with 40 units in your main army, 25 in the secondary army, and they're mostly line infantry. It's like a mixture of line. Even though you don't have the technology for line infantry yet, you do start with some line infantry, and you start with the truce with the Russian Empire. Actually, not only that, but I've added truces for a lot of the big blobs. So, for example, Qing can only get attacked by the British. They have truce with the Russians for 5 years. They got truce with the French, with most of the great powers, so that if anybody wants to attack them, they cannot attack in the first 5 years. They have to wait, and you get 5 years to fix your economy, get proper units, and actually put up a fight against the Russians, for example. The British will still be able to attack you just to keep things historical and to make it a little bit more fun, right? I've also reworked the infamy system. So at base, reputable infamy, you will get bonuses. You get 50 authority, 15% authority, influence, radicals from conquest reduction. But if you get infamy, things start to change. First, one is at 30 infamy. So let's add one more war goal here, conquer the other states. So once you reach 30 infamy, you get minus 100 authority, minus 5% authority as well, influence reduction, penalty, radicals from conquest, 50% increase, penalty from turmoil, innovation, maximum investment reduction. So that means your maximum amount of potential technology gets reduced if you have high infamy. So you get less innovation from being an aggressive scumbag. Okay, now if you add more to that, you go above 75. How will you even do that? Let's go with this, right? Now if you increase that above 70 and then you go to 100, it gets even worse. So at 100 and above, you get minus 200 authority, minus 10% authority. More importantly though, radicals from conquest, state penalty from turmoil, and max innovation investment minus 25. It is really bad. Suffice to say, you do not want to have high infamy, because if you do, you just destroy your country from the inside. It is not great. This is mostly aimed at multiplayer, where I don't necessarily need to have a rule that says, oh, if you get high infamy, you're not allowed to expand anymore. You yourself will not expand because you do not want these modifiers. And I'm even thinking of adding even more modifiers to make it even more brutal. One more big change is I've rearranged some of the technology. So one of them that you guys probably know already is analytical philosophy. Now this was a level 5 technology, which didn't make much sense to me, because by the time you research this technology, you would already have enough universities to fill up your innovation cap very easily. The only thing this technology does is it gives you more innovation per universities, because it's simply a production method change, right? Bringing this up to level 3, meaning you can research it after you've done dialectics and after you've done psychiatry. Well, actually only psychiatry. I need to make it so it's after both. Actually, I need to fix that. Remember, remind me in the comment. But yeah, after you've done that, you can afterwards get level 3 analytical philosophy. So with the same amount of universities, you get more innovation around the 1860s in a normal time frame, rather than getting this technology in the 1890s, when it doesn't make sense because you're not going to use it anyway. So no one is actually going to research this until the very end. Like, it's the most useless technology in vanilla, right? It's not just this. I've restructured a lot of technologies. I've added new bonuses to the technologies. For example, nationalism also gives authority, maximum declared interest, but it also gives a birth rate. So it increases the amount of population you have with nationalism. And it is a big deal. If you do this early in the campaign, that 5% birth rate ends up, for example, as the Prussians, in like 5 million more primary culture pops by the end of the campaign, which is nothing to be ashamed of. Let's face it, 5 million extra Germans is a lot, and it scales, and there's more modifiers that give birth rate, right? Now I've also added, for example, taxation capacity percentage for central archives, for identification documents as well, and I've increased the base taxation capacity. This is especially good for bigger nations that have issues with taxation capacity. Central planning really doubles down on that. I've also added market access price impact 5% for joint stock companies, and some technologies like the railways increase land trade capacity massively, as they should, because they did historically. I've rebalanced the production methods also. So for example, you get more coal from the different production methods compared to vanilla. Similarly, you get more paper. You get up to 80 paper from sulfite pulping, 120 from paper bleaching. Some of these production methods I've given less outcome, some I've increased. I'm not going to go through all of them. It's just, in my way, a better, more balanced production method output overall for the buildings. I've also made it so units have a higher input of arms and so on, just to make things more interesting, and to make sure that you really need to have arms industries, for example, right, to sustain an army. Legislations have also been changed. I think the best one to show for this is Japan, since I've rebalanced what the legislations do. So let me make this very clear. Traditionalism, isolationism, closed borders is good for the Japanese early on, because you get market access price impact, taxation capacity increase from closed borders. Similarly, isolationism gives you a lot of authority and 40% taxation capacity. But here's the catch, right? This is really great for the early game. However, if you don't modernize, you will massively fall behind everybody. So you want to be still striving for modernization, but you have to find that sweet spot. You want to take advantage of these particular legislations early in the campaign and switch at the right moment to catch up with the rest of the great powers and not fall behind. There's some bonuses for, like, for example, slavery ban gives 100 authority, ethno state gives birth rate alongside even more authority, and so on. And traditionalism is slightly less punishing, but it's still kind of bait. You want to go away from traditionalism ASAP, to be fair. School system is a lot more powerful now. Public schools increase assimilation at double the speed, so you will be assimilating pops 2 times faster with the public school system. Again, the reason I did that to make sure that populations get assimilated faster, so you get less different pops and you keep improving the performance of the game as you progress, because there's less pops of different backgrounds in your game essentially. This is what the mod looks like on the mod page. I will link this in the description. Again, make sure you subscribe to all the other mods linked at the bottom of this particular mod here. You'll have all the links needed. And I've added some of the changes I've made. Not all the changes have been added because I was a little bit lazy, to be honest with you. I've just made so many changes that I couldn't keep up with adding all the changes. Probably to be noted is that I've significantly increased the rubber, oil, and all the other different unique resources around South America, Africa, other parts of the world, especially oil in Persia, Iraq, and so on. The Middle East is significantly increased as a means of making it more interesting. You know, South America is a lot more valuable in this mod than it is in vanilla, because most of the rubber is going to be there rather than other parts of the world. I do hope you guys enjoyed this little video, and I hope you play with the mod. I've had a lot of fun making this, and I do hope to see some of you in the multiplayer we're organizing in the middle of November on the Discord channel. Link in the description as well for that. Love y'all, and I'll see you in the next one.